Hi, my name is Jordan at Bowman Dock and Lift, and today we're going to go over a seasonal inspection and service on a 4K hydraulic lift. So, we just got it lift out of the water for the year. We're going to go through and check out some things and verify that it doesn't need any repairs before it goes back in the water next spring. We're going to check and make sure that the structure itself doesn't have any issues, no bent parts, no cracked welds anywhere. We're going to check our cables, make sure there's no frays, make sure that the swedges themselves here aren't bent, and we're going to check for loose fasteners. On the 4K hydraulic, we have our main lifting cable here that runs up into the cylinder tube around a pulley up there that attaches to the hydraulic cylinder, and it mounts back here. So for a visual on this, we want to check where it bolts to the lift frame itself here. We want to check and make sure that the nuts are still tight on it. We want to make sure that the lock washer is still compressed. And we want to make sure that the swedge is still nice and straight, doesn't have any kinks or bends in it. And then, if we see anything that looks weird, we can pull the cylinder cover off and take a closer look at it. With the cylinder cover off, we can check out and make sure that the Clevis here assembly looks good. We're just looking for loose fasteners or anything bent or cracks or anything, and that all looks good. And while we're in here, we can also check and see if there's any hydraulic fluid residue, anything that would indicate a hydraulic leak anywhere. We can check our hose fittings, make sure those are nice and tight, and do a quick visual on the hoses for cracks or splits. I'm wearing gloves when I'm handling steel braided cables in case there's any pokies on it. So it runs down to here. We'll raise it, lift up a little bit. Make sure that the nuts here are tight, the lock washer is compressed, and the swedge is nice and straight. And then we're going to want to repeat that cable inspection process around all four corners. We have one cable here that runs across and up. We have one here that runs up, forward here, and up to here. And then we have our last cable that runs from the bottom here through this beam and up to here. So we're just going to look for any frays or bent swedges and make sure that all the fasteners are nice and tight. The other thing we'll check is make sure that all of our bolts for our spreaders and our lifting bed are in place and still nice and tight, and at that point we can go and start greasing the lift. So at Bowman, we use a general purpose lithium grease. On this lift, we have 8 different grease points that we want to hit. And the lift needs to be all the way down to hit the grease point up in the cylinder tube. This is the grease point for the lifting pulley that attaches to the hydraulic cylinder. This is just what it looks like inside. We do have the ability to grease this with the cover on it. With the cover on, we have this hole right here. We want to make sure that the lift is all the way down, which, judging by that noise, it is. And right through here, straight behind this hole, we can get to the grease zerk. So we're just going to take our grease gun and put it through, click it onto the zerk, and we're going to just start greasing it until it starts getting a little harder to squeeze the grease gun, which that's about right. If there was a plug in this hole, we're going to reinstall it at this time and move on to the next one. The other grease point on the primary side is in the corner with the big lifting cable, real easy to get to. We're just going to put our grease gun on there. And this one you can see to make sure that the grease is flowing, and when you see some fresh grease, you can pop it off and Then we can take a rag and wipe off the excess. And while we're here, we can do a quick visual and make sure that the pin's nice and tight. And then we can move on to the pins in the bed. All right, for greasing these, I'm gonna move my lifting bed up to an easier height to work off of. And there's 6 pins in the 4K hydraulic bed that we're gonna grease. So we'll start in one corner and work our way around and be done with it. So, same idea, we just take our grease gun, we put it on the grease zerk and pump it until it gets stiff, and pull it off and wipe the excess off. And while we're here, we'll do a quick inspection to make sure that the pin's nice and tight. And I got that one done, then we'll just work our way around. That is the greasing procedure for a 4K hydraulic lift, and we at Bowman like to do it every year when we pull it out of the water before it sits for the winter. The other time that we might do it is if there's a groaning noise or something that just doesn't seem right. Can be a pulley that's getting a little sticky and needs to be lubricated. So for our visual once over, we looked at our fasteners and we tightened anything up that was loose. We checked our cables. If we notice any fraying or swedge issues on those, they need to be replaced before the lift is put into service again next year. If we notice any hydraulic fluid leakage, we need to inspect the hoses and check for loose fittings there and get those repaired or replaced. And we need to, if we check our frame and we notice any cracks or broken welds or anything bent, that needs to be repaired before the lift's put back into service for next year. At this point, we got one more winterization thing to do, and let's talk about our battery. As I've talked about in our charging system, we have our solar panel that runs down and charges the battery inside here. So in Bowman, what we normally do is if the lift's gonna be outside in a nice sunny area all winter, we'll just leave the battery hooked up, assuming that the solar panel is gonna be hooked up in a nice sunny area, and the solar panel and charge regulator will keep the battery from topped up and keep it from freezing. If it's gonna be in a real shaded area or in a different kind of circumstance, it might be worth watching the battery removal and reinstallation video and pulling it out for the winter. That's the winterization and inspection process for a 4K hydraulic lift. And if you have any questions, please contact your local Bowman Dock and Lift dealer or contact us at bowmandock.com. Thank you.